All right, welcome to a new stream, and today we're going to do Haskell. We're going to continue our to-do app, and we're going to use the integrated Haskell platform by Digitally Induced. Let me just share that link again. And there we go. All right. Hope you all had a good Monday. It was a super busy one for me, but I'm ready to do this. Bit tired, but yeah, we're gonna have some fun playing around with Haskell. So let me switch over. All right. So quick recap. Last time, so that was last Monday, we did all of this part, the getting started. We installed IHP, which I did before, so the stream wouldn't be delayed by installation. And then we did our first project. And let me quickly change a bit of setting, like that. Just personal for me, because I keep hearing my own voice and it throws me off a little bit. But it helps with the stream to determine everything is going well. So yeah, we did all of that. We built our first project, and Digitally Induced actually starts with a block platform, but to do something a bit different, we started building a to-do app, and that kind of looks like this. So we have our to-dos. You can make new ones. So for example, you have the build, you can add comments, you can say who you are. This was a fun stream. There we go. It adds it, goes back to the to-dos. So everything from comments is hidden because we don't need it. There's a time. And if we, for example, look at the extent, we can see this one was made 27 minutes ago, not complete yet. And this is the IHP backend, their platform to build or easily build your stuff. So you can see we have our to-dos and we have our comments, which can then be updated into the DB, and you can dump into fixtures, which we have here. So we have fixtures, and this is our schema. We can also see the data that is inside there. So we can see our to-dos, we can see our comments, which is good. And there was one more thing. Yes, the code generation. So we can easily create stuff based on what we have in our settings. And with settings, I actually mean in our schema. So we can build controllers for all of that, which we did last time. And that's how we got to this. Now, the guide is actually finished. We have our first project. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the basics. And we're going to look at stuff that is in here and see what we can do to improve what we have already, which will mean for this episode with the basics, what I thought I saw, like routing, make sure that it actually goes by default to our to-dos overview and not to the app stuff. I can show you quickly. So by default, it goes to this. And part of the routing will be to change it so that it goes to this. At least that's what I hope that we can learn from all of this. And then we have some basic knowledge like HSX, some cookies, some sessions, validation updates. And so we're going to go through here. We're going to see what we can perform on our application here. Then in the next one, part 3, we'll do the advanced probably. Maybe even part of the front end, depends how fast everything goes. And we're just gonna go through this, and hopefully by the end of it, we're gonna have a nice working to-do app. Well, it already works, so that's nice, but what I meant is like a fully fledged with logins and stuff like that. So, and styled. And I'm thinking for the front end, since we have, I might have a look at, I forgot the name now. That's a bit sad. What's it called again? Oh God, I see it like every day in my Git, in my Twitter appearing, and now Tailwind CSS. So we might do something like that, see how that works. I've never worked with that before, so it's like 2 in 1. 2 stuff we'll learn, 2 items. But yeah, like I said, today we'll start with just the basics and see how far we can go into that one. So quick reminder for myself, we don't really need the static yet. We have our controllers here, both the comments and the to-dos. We also have our views, all of them for the comments and everything for the to-dos. I might clean this up, but it depends on what we'll see today, because for comments, we don't need like the index because we're not showing all of them, but that's all. Besides, that's for after. So, basics. Okay, this section tries to answer common questions on where to place your code. The recommendation found by digitally induced to be working well. Remember that all specific web app logic stays in the web space. The application space for sharing code across all your different applications. In other words, code shared between your web application and your backend. Okay. Does that mean backend like this backend? Because last time I talked to, and I have to look, Peters, and he told me like application could be anything that's reused in between everything in the web. Like common stuff for the views that is reused in different views, stuff that is reused in different controllers. Think about if we have a quick look at to-dos, you have this markdown parser that could, markdown validator that could be in the application because it could be reused by the comments as well. And I think it actually is reused. No, not yet. But the comment here could be made as a markdown as well. So, but we'll see. So we have our config. It's all here. So our config is here with all of the framework and application config, which is this, which at this point is very simple. The Nix config for the Nix package manager, which is all here. The application is your domain logic. So it would make sense to me to have everything there that is also reusable as part of your domain. So for example, schema and the fixtures is the database that will always be there. What's in this script? Okay, helpers. Indeed. So this is what I meant with the validation, for example. And this is probably the same for your views. Available on all your views. So you have a helper. Web controller prelude, which empowers the helper as well. So technically we could also make our own little helpers based on the controllers and then reuse it in each of those. But yeah, like markdown stuff, it's going to be used everywhere, so that it's pretty okay, right? So web controllers, that makes sense. Your controllers, your views, web view, web types. Just gonna quickly do this. Web types. Central place for your web application types. Yeah, and this is what is generated by the IHP. When you create something new, it automatically creates your controller data and the views. So for example, for this one, we have a to-dos controller, which comes back to the to-dos action. You have a new to-do, show to-do, create to-do, edit to-do, update and delete, and it adds all of the stuff we need. The static stuff is all in static. That makes sense as well. That's what we also saw last time. Then you have your .ghci, which is your Haskell interpreter config file. It's this one. We're gonna leave it as is for now. Git ignore, that makes sense. App cabal setup.hs is your config for the cabal package manager, which we're also not gonna touch. But we added the markdown, I think, here, right? Last time? No. Did we? Can't remember where it was. We added it somewhere, but I don't remember. This is what happens if you leave too much time in between stuff. Was here? Ah, yes, it was in the default mix. App dependencies, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Here's our markdown stuff. Okay, where to place a function I want to use in all of my views. In a function is only used if the function is only used in a single application and is a building block for your layout. Place it in the web view layout. Layout, that's this one. And is a building block, okay. So this holds all of your stuff that is showable everywhere. Like we can do Haskell to do application. It's gonna refresh. And then this should technically be Haskell to do it. Voila. So that makes sense. So this is everything that is in there. You have your inner and the flash messages. And the inner is probably what gets shown. If the function is used across multiple applications or more like a helper function, place it in the application helper view.hs, which is then here. This module is also already included in your view files. And then we have the same for the controllers in the helper controller. If you have a custom type, place it in the web types. And if you're building an admin backend, where to place it. Run new application admin to generate a new admin application. The logic of a new application is located in the admin directory. On the web, you can find it at admin. All actions are prefixed with admin. Oh, so you like do it here, and then when you run this, you can get the admin again. So like comment editing and stuff, we could move to the admin actually. Okay, but let's start with the view. So we have this view, and now we need to think where it was, because it's been a while. In our show, I think we'll need to do it with the right. So you have a render comment and a render markdown text. Okay, let me quickly see how it was again. So you have your show view to do, show view, you have your breadcrumbs, your href to do, a description that you parse to render markdown. This render markdown does all of this. So actually it's this one that we'll reuse. So we're gonna add the render markdown here. Which means technically if I now remove it from here, it should be fine, except we need to import. this one in our view. Variable not in scope, random markdown text. So it's already not compiling. So we import our web prelude, which contains this view. And then we say for a random markdown, we get a text, and we import the qualified text.mmmark as mmmark. Yet when we try it out, it says the variable is not in scope. So are we seeing how that works in this space? No. So it just says where if I want to use in all my views. So the function is only used in a single application, but apply for your layout placed in the web view layout. Okay, but we want to have a helper placed in the application helper view. So that's this part. So we added it in the helper view. And then in the show we removed it, but it's still getting called here, random markdown. So that's a bit weird that it's not working. Okay. Then we'll do it the old way. Google. Okay, so you type the function in GHCI. I have no idea what this is, because I haven't even seen this. Maybe it's easier if we say IHP variable non-scope. See, but this is not how we do it in view. Just trying to figure it out. The weird thing is we don't have any, so it's in WebView to do show.hs. Okay, this is new. That's this one, 733. Variable not in scope random markdown. So it's because of this, right? So if I remove this, Can you connect to the server? Then it works again. Okay. But as soon as I add render markdown, it breaks down. Because it cannot find the render markdown. Yet it says you can add your custom functions here. Is this not a function? This should be a function, right? It's a bit confusing. Is it because of these? The t-show and the pre-escaped? No, because it's literally saying the random markdown variable, not in scope. Maybe someone did the exact same thing. See, the issue for me is it's hard to say what this all means because I haven't seen it yet. And then it says delete is not imported. Is not a syntax error. So it says variable is non-scope, and then HTML show view breaks here. But the weird thing is, no, because we ended here. See, and technically what we had before is this, and then it works. Maybe we should do it step by step, right? So let's remove, we import it here. Let's see what that gives. No, that already is an issue. So as soon as we import stuff, it's not working. Even though this one says import the prelude, which will import this. No, wait. Web view prelude, yes. And the web view prelude imports the web view, application helper view. So application helper view, which is this one, which then imports IHP view prelude. This one does the same thing. So that's weird. What if we do the reverse? We keep this, move that. That's not gonna make sense, right? Now it says the module mmmark is not imported in our application view helper. Okay, that makes sense. So I add it. And now it just says the variable is non-scoped or render markdown. Would be easier if you had like a an example. Can you actually make like a static to-dos? But this is just an action, right? Is it a script? No, it's not a script. Application, no. But you could add a new application. So basically what it says here, you have the function, you place it in that, and this module is already included in your view files. So this one should already be included here, which means that this should be available here, but it's not. Instance view show view context. Like this also includes like the layout and everything. Is this actually a function? So it should be built different? Oh. Maybe that's the issue. So wait, how was it here? It says you default HTML text, okay. So if we do the same, we say render markdown, you get text and it returns not in scope, type constructor class HTML. But then you're going really far just to get this to work. And the view context is not there. Okay. Where was it? So view context is maybe we should do differently. Just a second. No. That was a bit too far. So what if we do text and you get text back? Couldn't match type text place internal markup M with text. And then you actually get text place HTML. So, so we're getting closer, right? Jesus, this spam is like getting ridiculous. Yeah, we're not gonna buy anything. At least not like that. So I think I have to now get this HTML stuff. So what did it say? Which type? Because it gave me a specific type, right? The text place internal markup is a type text place HTML. So how do you... Okay, could not find module. Okay, text place. Not in scope, perhaps you meant HTML.html. Now it goes back to variable not in scope. I'm not sure how to deal with this now because I'm not finding the solution for this. I'm not sure. No, digitally induced left. They were here, but because technically they could have helped me out, but it seems I'm on my own. Because this just gives the same error as if I did this, right? Not in scope, yeah. So I thought you had to create a function, doesn't, so it just says this one is not in scope. So someone says I imported this, encode in string, encode shift message. See, because they do this as well. and I don't have that. And then it says it's always the same. Variable non-scope, the encode. There's an indentation in your error. Maybe it is an indentation issue because we had that last time as well. The question is, where is the indentation error? Oh, that's an issue on the helper. This all seems fine. Maybe it's this part. It's not a visible method. Ah, we're getting closer. We are getting closer. So apparently there was this all needs to fall like in the next line. That's good. We're getting closer. Now it says the method is there, but it's not visible. I wonder if this is where you do this part. No, not a visible. Did you install the formatter extension for VS Code? Yes, I did. Oh, we're going a bit. Yes, I did. So for the extension wise, I have Haskell syntax highlighting, which was the one that was most used. And something I discovered today is the tab 9 autocomplete. And it apparently autocompletes, but I haven't seen it yet, so it's weird. Maybe I need to like enable it. That's a good question. So tab 9. That's professional local, yes. I haven't seen it do anything yet. But anyway, it's also why I get all of this. So, but it's not a visible method, or not a method. So there's something new we can now check. It says of a class. So here you have the same thing, and then it says instance. You are mixing up data type definitions and type classes. So if we go back, but I went too far, right? So it's HTML, and then you have HTML. Where did I saw? What was the example again? Completely forgot. Layout. So this one says nothing special. It just does default layout. Still the visible error. Render comment. Oh wait, we're talking about the render comment now. No longer about the markdown, right? Render comment is the issue, which is this one. actually this. Actually, because we had this text equals and then case text. Now you have comment. So actually we didn't solve it. Oh, that's if I go too fast. So now if I do this, we're gonna get the error again, right? Yeah. It's just because it had something to complain about faster than the help. So if I do this, see, so it's actually not solved by doing all of this. It's not in scope. Still not in scope. At this point, I'm just testing here. Right? So I have my prelude. This is render common, but I need render markdown. I feel like I need to like I don't know, add it somewhere? To use the built-in login, import login support, yeah, that's fine, but that's not what I want. The thing is, I cannot check where their stuff is, right? There's nothing available from whatever they have, because that's all hidden. Maybe not. Yeah, that's all. That's all been like flushed out. The A0 variable, but we don't have an A0 variable. Where would we have that? So we actually don't need this, it gives the same issue. And we're actually not doing any HSX. It's show view, it's right here. It says all of this and then well, actually wait. What you need to do, view dot render markdown. Not in scope, no module named view is imported. But it's like right here, instance view. You mean here? See, it's non-scope, perhaps you meant html.html. Which I then say, fine, take HTML, and then says variable non-scope. But indeed it says on this part. Can I find the module? And then it says like this. See, and that's a weird thing, huh? Because now it says you should have HTML and then nothing. And then if I do this, for example, it says, whoa, you have text place internal markup with text. But what we expect is, or what we get back is text place HTML, HTML. Right? But then it says this is not imported. So maybe you need to qualify it as well. Oh, that's not correct. See, and then it says I cannot find that, so you do this. Then it says the HTML is not correct. Did you mean HTML.html? And then it goes back to variable not in scope. You mean this one? I can try, but I don't even do the other two, so nope. It's really weird. See, you import it. Maybe it shouldn't be qualified. That's this variable non-scope. What's this A0? That's weird. Now it just suddenly changed. No, still same. Okay, maybe we can just search for Haskell text place. Markup combinator library provides a way to embed. But technically I feel like it should be like, well, maybe that's mark.html. Does not export. No. Could try. So you have text place. Pre-escaped to HTML. So this part is actually of the Blaze stuff, which feels like is already included here by default. You believe the issue is in show HS as opposed to this part? The thing is, if there would be no description, it would already not do it. Because it gets text and then it says, if there's text, you parse it. But indeed the show view is here. So that makes sense. Also, wait, is it now taking the HTML? Yeah. So the render markdown works, and so in here it doesn't take the render markdown. Define the render markdown. Well, you mean like import web dot, no, and then it's actually a helper dot view dot, then it should be like this, right? Wait, where's the preload? This is all part of the prelude, so I think it's weird that I have to let's just do helper. Now it fails on the comments. Oh no, not in scope helper.render markdown. Does not export. Yeah, if only we had like an example of another helper, that would be nice, like something that's filled out. They have no like examples. They have recipes. The thing is, that's it, eh? That's all there is, eh? Maybe in the views. So example view, instance view example where blah blah. By default, when rendering an HTML view, IHP uses default application. It's just a function taking a view. Huh. So this talks about a function. So could it be that I need a type in the markdown? Hello Peters, how are you doing today? No worries. We haven't gotten far yet. No, that's also not it. But actually, since you've got experience with this, you might be able to help us. So, we went through everything from the first project, and we're looking at the architecture. And so, where do you place a function you want to use in some of the views? You do it in the helper. So, I don't know if you remember, we had like a render markdown right here. And it worked with the, and I'll just put it say back, with this piece of code. So you import the qualified mark. So maybe it's easier to just quickly go back to what we had. So we used to have this. And then it works. Everything is nicely shown. So what we thought was, because our comments could also have a description, let's move the render markdown to our helper view. So we thought about just taking this part, moving it to view, because here it says you can add functions, and then of course import the markdown thingy like this. But then we get this variable not in scope for the show view. So we're not sure what we're doing wrong. IHP has no other explanation except for this part. So to move your stuff, we've been looking at or Googling rather the variable not in scope, but we see markdown code we're not used, Haskell code that we're not used to because we're not that far yet. So we get all of these crazy things we've never seen. So we're not sure where the issue is. And then we thought like, Merke thought it would be here, that the issue is here, that we're forgetting something. And maybe he's right, because he's probably right, because it's in the to-do show that we have the issue where it says the variable is not in scope to render markdown. In the controller or in the view, because this is all a view. Which actually brings us to the next part, because we have the web view prelude. And if you look in the web view prelude, which is this one, it actually already imports the application helper view. So we would expect this to have this, because that's the one it includes. Then again, it's also weird because the IHP view prelude is imported twice then. So it's a bit weird. We're a bit confused right now. So technically the flow is this. You have your view helpers, it gets imported in the prelude, prelude gets imported in the show. And it's where we use the render markdown, but it's not showing up. So we have to export. And is it just export? Put it between the parentheses after the module where. Oh. Like here, right? Before where? So in here? So render markdown? Hey! Ah, yeah, of course. Okay, so now it makes sense. You have your module helper view, and it says what it exports. So you have a render markdown, you can export it here, and then wherever it gets used. I see. I think it's a bit sad that they don't go deeper into it, or maybe it's just not here yet. Because all you can see about this is like, yeah, if you have something, you can move it there and it's done. You can use it everywhere. Oh, so you can also make it automatically. Now here but here they indeed do the same. So they export all of this again. All right. That actually makes sense because you also have built-in login, which they import and then export. Okay. Thank you for the help. Much appreciated. So we did what we wanted, or at least what I wanted to achieve. That's nice. And so I wanted to do the same for the controllers, because with the controllers, and now we have to check where I am, you have to-dos. You have a little validation, the is markdown, and I actually wanted to do the same. So let's quickly clear that up. So I would take this, put it in the controllers, and then if my logical thinking is right, oh yeah, I need to import. That makes sense. So sometimes it doesn't really. And then that should be for controller stuff. So now we can also reuse it on our comments. Okay, that's nice. Let me quickly check if our... No, I didn't want the app. I wanted the data. No, schema. So here a description is a text. Here a comment is a text. So I need to remember how this was done. So our comments should also be able to be marked down. That means we have to validate the same way here, but with comment. So it shouldn't be empty, and it should be is markdown, which is then fine. I don't think we did anything else to say it needs to be marked down. Or did we? To do deleted, to do create. No, just validate. It's fine. Okay, so now we still need to update the view, I think, for edit and create. And let me quickly check how we did it here. We have a render form of to do. We create a text area field set. Help text markdown is enabled. But we didn't do anything else, right? It's kind of the same here. It's been a while, so it's getting back into it is the hardest part. So if we go to new here, we'll change the comment the same way. So it's going to be a text area field. Was text area small or? Yeah. Just going to quickly copy paste because it's going to be fastest. And we're going to add the helper text. It was like this. Help text equals markdown is enabled. We're missing something. Yeah, it's different. I did it the wrong way. So it's not these, it's these. Okay, and then let's do the same for the edit. I'm just gonna quickly do it like this. There we go. So that means now we can also do it markdown here. As an experienced programmer, any tips for back pain prevention or remedies? I wish I had one. I have to be honest, I go to my physiotherapist every year at Christmas. I go like a few sessions and then I'm good for another year. But back pain, yeah. You need to make sure you're sitting upright and all of that. I know it, but I myself am someone who like slouches. I can't help it, and it's really bad. But yeah, but I do have exercises now, and since I do them, they're much better. And you can easily do them just actually just from your chair. So one is very simple. Let me quickly change, then you get at least a bigger picture. So the first each exercise you do them like 10 times. So the first one is just sit up straight and then move your head left and right. That's 1, 2, and that's how you keep going. So you do that 10 times, and then the same with looking left and looking right, like just as far as you're comfortable with. Don't try to push it. The third one was that you actually roll your head, but you never roll backwards. You just go back to neutral, because if you go backwards you pinch your neck, which is not good. So you just roll the other way, and neutral. So that's the third one. And then the fourth one, it's weird because I don't feel it personally, but it's just you stretch your arms in front of you, so you sit up tight, and then just move your shoulder forward one by one, so not at the same time. You do that 10 times. And then the last one, which is my personal favorite, but it's hard to do with a headset, is you place your hands in your neck, and my headset is in the way, and so you just squeeze forward. So you just, and when you open, you just like should feel between your shoulders. And that helped me with all of the, because I'm mostly stuck on the top side of my back, so my neck and my shoulders. And those are exercises that help me, but I think the best way is to get a good chair. I have to admit, I have a bad chair as well. I have one from IKEA, and it's like a simple one. It's not like even a real desk. Well, it is a desk, but not the advanced ones. But I'm actually thinking of getting a, I keep forgetting the name of the chairs. They're like really fancy. They're like pretty cool. Most streamers have them. I forget the name. They have like a Batman version and stuff. It's pretty cool. Hey Ailberg, I hope I said that right. Thank you for the follow. Much appreciated. Hope you're doing well. Hope you enjoyed the tips for your back and neck. Yeah, but Peter's, for the rest, try to get up and move every hour. I give all these tips, but I'm bad at them as well. So, but that's something you should do. And it's actually funny you should mention it, because I do a lot of public. I used to do a lot of public speaking when it wasn't Corona time. And actually, someone I met who's Polish had the same issue, and he actually has a displaced disc in his back. So he has a hernia from sitting down since the lockdown, because he used to be much more active. So be careful not to get that. Oh, you're going next week? That's good. That's good. They can always give you better tips, because I used to go to someone else and they would give me completely different tips, but they were pretty hard to do at home. You have to like have a belt and stuff like that. And I even got it here. They gave me one, like those stretch thingies, and they were like, yeah, you just hook it behind something and you just pull, and I almost pulled out the door. So it wasn't that easy to do with those things. And these are just easy to do on your chair. So technically you should get up, but all right. Let's switch back. So now normally in my comment, I can do Markdown. That's good. The thing is, oh wait, right. So now we have our markdown. That's good, but of course I need to show them. So that's back to the to-dos show. So we have render markdown. Now here we get we do render comment. And I wonder, but I hope I can just do render markdown. Hooray! It's a bit weird that this is bigger than this, but okay. But it works. That's nice. So if I go like 3, just to test. I'm also not sure. Oh, also not sure how. I think this was bold. Yeah. Oh no. Bold is 2. Yeah, bold is 2. My bad. But at least it works. So we have markdown in our comment sections as well. And the nice thing is we did it with both this thing where you move this thing with this way of working where you move everything into a helper, both your controller, which is now the markdown validator to be reused by both the comments and the to-dos controller, and we have our render markdown helper to render in the show to-dos. Both the, well, technically I could do it here as well, right? So I could have comment, but we're not really gonna use this because it's wait, did I have to import something then? I forgot. I'm like super slow today, I don't know why. No, you don't have to do anything, it's just there. But oh right, this is just a comment, right? It's not yet, we haven't cleaned this up. Well, we're not going to use this because we're not going to actually show these parts, at least not yet as far as I know. So that's for the helpers. Custom types go into web types, but we don't need custom types at this point. I wouldn't know what to do with custom types for my to-do app at this point. Structure my CSS. So, oh yes, you have also the MM backend and you can place it in the new application, or you can do it here in the code generation. So you can also make an application part of it to make an admin. But at this point, I'm not too worried about that. We might do that in the future. Structure my CSS. So all other static assets should be placed in the static directory. Yes, that makes sense. So you have an app CSS, but it's already everything is there, at least the app CSS. If you want page specific, place page specific CSS used by certain views of, for example, the web controller in your users.css. Use current view ID to scope your CSS rules to the view. This will render like projects show. So in your projects.css, you can just do rules like project show h1 color blue. But it's weird. Do you have to do this? Because that's not part of CSS normally. But you know, we're gonna do that when we get to the front end part. We're gonna play with all of the structures like CSS and JavaScript. I don't need it now, so it's not yet needed. All right, and then also images should be there as well. That makes sense. Naming conventions. So database tables should always be used lowercase, which we did because that's the right thing to do, and always in plural. Snake case if you have like a longer line. View module names should always follow the following: app, view, controller, action verb. Controller should not end in controller. Okay, that makes sense because it would be. We do that sometimes for Symfony, or we used to do that, but it's like weird. You would have like controller, post controller, and it's like ugh, we know it's a controller from, you know, saying it's a controller in the beginning. Action verb should not end in view. Yeah, makes sense as well. Actually, all of this makes sense, right? So you have these modules, web controller comments, web view comments dot show. It's probably web view comments edit. Okay. So modules, how you name your front-end stuff. Cool. Then you have a view data should always end in view. That's this part. Data added view is added view and whatever you get in there. So in this case, a comment, of type comment. So that makes sense. Controller is the same way. Module web controller comments. Should not end with controller. It should usually be in plural form. Was that the same for the view? I don't think so, right? You don't have edits, no. But the comments is, yeah, that makes sense. Data structure, controller, data structure should always end in controller, as it's usually important in other modules unqualified, which was part of your, this part is part of your, no, it's not the front controller, it's roots, no, types. Data to this controller equals, and then the actions. And that makes sense. And should not be like company controller. Should always be plural. Comments, to-dos. That makes sense. So naming conventions, I think is clear for me. Hope clear for everyone as well. Controllers and actions. Well, technically what we seem to be doing now is just go over what actually happens when we do stuff with the app itself. Did we just skip routing? No, we are on routing, right? Because it says controller and actions. I found a bug in the guide. So digitally induced, if you're listening, this should be renamed. Okay, routing basics. It's all in web roots, that makes sense. In addition to defining that route, it also has to be added in the web front controller. Start page is your welcome action. Ah, I see. So this is how we can change our stuff. So PR welcome. Yeah, if anyone wants to do it, go ahead, open source development. This is your time to shine. So one of the things I want to change is when, you know, I want to get to this automatically when I just do localhost 80,000. I don't want to go to this. I get that my application is working. So we probably have to change the start page. And it actually gives a welcome action. The thing is, if I'm not mistaken, if I go to the front controller, no, oh, Jesus, it's in types. I can just do to-do's action. And then normally, haha, start page updated. That's good. That's what we wanted. We don't want all of that fluff. We just want to go straight into our application. So that's nice. That's good. So what it does is enables root for the post controller. So you have the parts roots and it takes the controllers and it just takes all the data out of there. Changing the start home page, yes, that's what we just did. Start page is then the to-do's action in our case. URL generation. Use path to generate a path to a given action. To generate a full URL, use URL2. I think we already did that, right? We did it in, or at least it's done in the index. So you have here the path to need to do action in this case. Or your to-do's action, you can just do href as well. So I'm not sure what the difference is actually. But I also remember that we did something with the ID. Oh, that's here. Yeah. But here it doesn't have the path to. So maybe it's just optional. Let's say our post controller is defined on web types like this. Yes, that's what we have, but with to-dos. Using instance auto root post controller would give us the following routing. The URLs are very close to the actual action which is called. Makes sense? Just removes the action part and converts this into a query. Auto root and beautiful roots, URLs roots, beautiful roots. So lots of modern browsers don't even show the full URL bar anymore. It's true. Therefore, auto root doesn't aim to generate the most beautiful URLs out of the box, rather optimized for needs of developers. But if you need SEO reasons, beautiful URLs, instead of using AutoRoute, you can use the more manual APIs of IHP routing. And then you have a section called Beautiful URLs. Is it part of this one? Yeah, so it's later. Okay, back to AutoRoute. So that was this part. So we'll see the beautiful URLs later. Multiple parameters. Can I have multiple? Yep. We did that as well, right? We did it in the comments, I think. In the edit, I think. I remember we did it somewhere, I just don't remember where. And we also probably did it in the view. Ah, right, it was to add a comment. No? No, I don't remember. I thought we did it before, but apparently we didn't. I need to do streams faster, because else I'm going to forget stuff. Hey Merken, have a good night. Thanks for joining us and see you next time. Sleep well. We're not going to get through the basics today. I only have 40 minutes left. But at least we're having fun. We're learning stuff. I think that's the most important part. It's just these things we don't get to use right now. So you can add multiple parameters by just having post ID is this, the ID of a post. User ID is the ID of a post. It's twice post, by the way. So maybe this one should be user as well. See, I wave back. So there's another opportunity for someone to shine. to do open source software development or contribution. And then it will generate the routing like this. That's fine. Autoroute by default only works with UUID arguments and ID types like ID post. If you have a controller like data hello word controller hello action with a name, where you would have a text parameter, you have to configure the autoroute like this. So the instance of the autoroute for the hello word controller, where the parse argument is actually the parse text argument. So you actually have to parse it then. And this part was done in D. So these are all autoroutes for the to-dos controller. And then you would indeed add where parse arguments as text pair. But what if it's only for this action and not for every action? This also works with integer types. Parse int argument. Or does it just add to it? That's a good question. So right now the autoroute supports only a single type for all given parameters. In other words, an action which takes a UUID and a text is not supported with the autoroute. Okay. So if you have something special, it won't work. Well, special. You would have to do it manually. This is a technical problem you have to fix in the future. Until then, consider using param for the text parameter. Okay. Request methods. When an action is named a certain way, autoroute will pick a certain request method for the route. In other words, for a delete post action, it will only allow request with the request method delete, because it starts with delete. That makes sense. So you have delete. Update has post or patch, create has a post, show has a get or a head, and otherwise it's get post head. If you need more strong rules, consider using the other routing APIs available or overriding the allowed methods for action, which you can also do here then in your routes. So you can say for the hello action you can do a get. Makes sense. Karma collected. You actually win. Okay, that's nice. That's good. Fix a typo. Cool. Well, you have another one, eh? You can do a second PR. Or add it in the same merge request. Very nice. See, this channel is all about helping, having fun, learning stuff, and helping people. Application prefix. When using multiple applications in your IHP project, we might build an admin part. I'm not sure yet, but we might. The thing is, I only have like a few streams, 2 per week, and I'm actually thinking of changing the link stuff from Thursday into actually developing stuff as well, because I noticed this is the more, well, fun stream to do. Just going over links and saying what they are has helped people in the past as well, but it's just not as entertaining and not as fun. So I might do 2 development streams a week instead of 1 development and 1 link sharing, because let's be honest, I think most of us follow different people already on Twitter who also post all of the links, so it's fine. Plus I could do YouTube stuff for that one. And if you haven't yet, feel free to follow me on any of the other social media. Definitely also check out my YouTube, because as soon as I get 100 subscribers, I get a custom URL. Why does it have to be so high? But we'll see. So when using multiple applications in your IHP project, like an admin backend, autoroute will prefix the action URLs. In other words, a controller, hello world controller defined in admin times, will be automatically prefixed with admin and generate URLs such as admin/hello action. This prefixing has a special handling for the web module. Okay, that makes sense. What I am wondering though is we have these. It would be cool if I could build an admin to like change or moderate comments. But then again, all of this is like, you know, it's your own application. You're going to log in, you're going to use your admins, you're going to use your to-do list and you're going to comment it on yourself. It's not like someone else will comment it for you, unless you work with team people, which is also not for now. Apologies. I'm feeling the hour. Advanced. You also have a custom parse argument. So you can use custom data type as a routing parameter with autoroute. Now might be a good point to switch to a custom routing implementation instead of hacking this into autorouting. So a parse argument has a signature for all d.data.d. You get a byte string into a byte string and you return a d. So the first byte string argument is the field name of the action argument we're dealing with. Second argument is the value of the query string. So my action, first argument, second argument. The last argument, d, cannot be implemented in a type-safe way. It is implemented by calling unsafe course on a result value before returning it. The result of this is later used with from constring. Therefore, misusing parse argument can result in a runtime crash. Again, consider not using this API. Okay. Given we have a custom argument type in the format ID numeric, like ID1, ID0, we can define a custom parse custom ID argument like this. So you import the autoparsec byte string car8 as an autoparsec and the car8 as a byte string. So I get this part, right? So you can like say, okay, you have custom stuff. We get the field and the value. And for the value, we're going to say strip the ID off of it. And then if that works, because if not, you have an issue. And then you get the decimal for the end of the input. So I think if I understand it right, it removes first this part and then from the back, it takes your numeral. So you're in this case 0. And if it's right, we do this unsafe because it's unsafe. And if it's wrong, you get an error. But this is to be avoided apparently because it's not very safe. And a bit complicated. Oh, complicated? I wouldn't call it complicated, but they ask not to use that as much. Which I understand. And then it's better to do custom routing anyway. So sometimes you have special needs. And you can provide the lower level of routing API. So you have a post controller, show all my posts. And we want it to map. It's also going over your head. Don't worry. We're here to learn. And I have to say, I don't understand everything, like the autoparsec stuff. It's all new to me as well. We're just here to learn and we'll see. Normally I would try to do something with it, but I'm not sure what the use case would be for this thing, as I don't want to go make my code extra complicated just for the sake of showing this. But at least they provide examples, so we can at least have a look, see what it is and try to see what it does. So in this case, you want to map your post to show all my post action. So you create an instance of can root for your post controller, where you say the parse root is a string posts, end of input, but we also have a show all my post action. Okay. So we say for the parse this root, it will be a string saying posts, that's the end of the input, and that one goes to show all my post action. So the parse root function is a parser which reads an URL, returns an action of type post controller. It also uses the autoparsec. See below for examples on how to use this for building beautiful URLs. Okay, so actually if you want beautiful URLs, you will also need to do custom routing as well. And that actually makes sense, since they just created an auto router that makes it simple by using what is ever in the name of the action. Next to the routing itself, we also need to implement the URL generation. So instance has path post controller where path to show all my posts action goes to posts. So these two, I guess, will be in this part. Instead of this, you will have this, just to define your /posts go to show all my post action. That makes sense. Then beautiful URLs is actually the same thing. Additionally, we also want to accept permalinks with the ID like this. So if you want to do both the ID and, for example, the name of your blog post, but we weren't good to do so, it's fine. You would need to make changes to our data structure, but we would have to make the post ID optional. Additionally, we need to have a parameter for the URL slug. Wow. So that's in types, right? So data post controller equals show post action. With the post ID, which could be maybe. So the post ID is maybe there with the ID of the post, or you could have a slug with the text. That makes sense. So this post ID is a maybe, and if it's there, it's the ID of the post, or you will have the slug maybe, which is the text. Plain text, that's it. This will also require us to make changes to the action implementation, which is then of course in the controller. So that would be here. So let's say for the show, so you would have like a post ID or slug, and then they do post. In the case of the slug, do this, just slug query post filter where the slug is the slug, fetch one. And if it's not there, then nothing, just do fetch one post ID. And then you can define your can root instances, like, which is back into the roots. Instance can root for the post controller where parse roots do string posts. Let me see here, because this gets complicated. So do string posts, which means we're trying to get something. Let post by ID do ID parse ID end of input pure show post action. Post ID slug is nothing. Or we get the post by slug, where the remaining text is inside the slug. Show post action post ID is nothing. Slug. And then you could say it's one of these two. That's a bit complicated how you have to define that in Haskell. Additionally, we also have to implement the hasPath instance. Of course, if you have the can root, you need to have the path. So show post is post ID is just the ID with no slug. So you have posts and then the ID. Or you have the show post with the post ID nothing, and your slug is just this. Okay. Whoo. Okay. I understand it, but it's like, whoa. Feels so overcomplicated. But then again, it could be wrong. Maybe for someone who works with this like every day, this makes complete sense. Real world example of a custom routing implementation for a custom Apple web service. So you have an instance can root registrations controller where parse to root to. You have an Apple device ID, which is a string at the end of this URL. Parse the text, and then you have slash registrations. And then does it mean you have something else as well? So you have either create, which is do string member ID is parse ID, end of input, and then pure create registration. Or you have the show. Okay, I get it. So you get the string, right? Devices, registrations. And either this says show or create. At least that's what I think is happening. And then this parse text goes into pass type. And then you also have the instance has path, where you either get Apple device ID and a member or a member ID. Okay. See, it's getting a bit confusing now, because they came up with like something simple and then they go like boom, something a bit more complicated. So you always have the Apple device ID, and then sometimes you have like or you actually always have the pass type, but the pass type is either create or show. And if you have show, it also has a member ID. And that's why you have this part. So if it's create, but that's weird. If you have a member ID, you do create. I would say it would do a show. It's a partial combinator's magic. Great party trick, yeah, indeed. It's like, now you see it, boom, now you don't, but you have roots. Now HTML forms don't support special HTTP methods like delete. IHP has a middleware which transforms post with a form field method set to delete to a delete request. And then you have a custom 404, which is very easy to do apparently. So if I go to, what do we have now? Oh, I can't even open it. I don't get a 404? Or is it really like just, this is actually not found. But so you can create in static. Oh, yeah, no. So in static, just a 404. The HTML. I forgot the T. Rename. There we go. Just for the sake of testing, I'm not getting the 404. 404 not found. Yeah, that makes sense. But why am I not getting this? You can overwrite the default IHP 404 not found page by creating a new file, add static 4. Ah, a restart. That makes... That could be. Let's try it. And while it's starting, because for some reason it's not using the cache, I kind of upgraded my my terminal. Actually, I found out I had an issue with the terminal, which was stupid. So I wasn't loading the my source correctly. And so it would load like the source, which gives me the icons. Well, it wouldn't give me the icons because the icons are loaded afterwards, but it doesn't resource everything, which was stupid. And I found out today, I was like, whoa, I've been working for like a year in a wrong way with this terminal. So server has started, apparently, but I'm still getting the wrong. Yeah, it's up and running. Blah. Seriously? Let's do some quick 404 HTML because I just need some super simple. No. There's like literally nothing that just says like here's HTML for 404. Hover to play. Oh. Not used yet, maybe. Well, they have something about updating. What was it? There was something about updating IHP. To test out, even when you're not, you can update to the latest IHP git commits or specific git. To update, follow the instructions in the release notes. Yeah, apparently it's in the beta. Okay, so it's in the beta. Actually, it went pretty fast, so I think it's using the cachex now. Okay, so 4.4 is in the beta, so we'll update when we get it there. So we just did the routing. Still 15 minutes left. I was hoping we would be like much further. But yeah, slow and steady. So an action is a place for request handling logic. That makes sense as well. And a controller is just a group of related actions. You can think about an action as a message sent to your application. Basically the message, show me the post with this post ID. So each action needs to be defined in web types. So our web types now has all of our actions already for to-dos and comments. If you want to add a new one, you can use the code generator. That makes sense. Or you can even use the CLI. But if you want to do it manually, well, actually, makes sense, no? So you just create a controller, you give the module name, you import the prelude to have the helpers, you create the instance of the controller with its name, and then you say where, and then you define the different actions. That's basically it, right? And you have actions, they do something, they could have a parameter, and then you get some stuff. That makes sense. So that part makes sense, how to create them. I don't think we need to go over that. Reading query and body parameters, that's a different one. So inside the action, you can access request parameters using the param function. Parameter can either be a rel parameter, so query, or a form field. So body, and then the param function will work with query and body, so you don't have to worry about that. The body takes priority if you have the same name twice. So that's max items is param int max items. So with the param. I don't think we do that here, right? Param? Because we only take it like this. So actually they don't use that. Alternate request to that action can be used using the form. Automatically transformed to an int. Parsing works out of the box. Do we do it for the form? No, it uses fill. So it's not using this param thing anyway. In case there's a problem, you can get an error, but you can also do default ones. Okay, that makes sense. Param or nothing, you also have something. Then multiple params with the same name for checkboxes. The usual way of calling param text ingredients will only return the first ingredient, milk. You can do param list to get all of the different inputs. That makes sense. When this action is called with both checkboxes checked, ingredients will be set to milk, egg. Nothing, empty list. That makes sense. Then parsing data from the action to the view. You can do this by extending the view data structure by the required. So given an example with action example action do render example view, the view can do the same and then says where example view. And then if you have the first name, you just do data first name text and you can use it. And in your action, it's render with this, which we actually also have in our site. I'm actually Belgian, Dutch side of Belgium. But indeed, I've been told I have a special R, and apparently it's a very decent R to speak Spanish, which I followed like 2 lessons of. But yeah, I stopped, so I don't speak Spanish. But apparently I have a great R for that. So for example, for our view, let's take one. So the show, for example, you have your, or in the comments, which is a bit weird. Let's take to-dos and then to-dos show. So you can pass it along with having, like here we fetch the to-do based on the to-do ID. We get our comments, but ignore that part for now if you're not seen the first part. Basically what we do is we modify it and we say for the comments order them descending based on the created ad, and then we fetch all the related ones, which means get all the data from the comments. And then we render the show view with just this ... which means take this to do and just put it in there. And then here you can just simply say, okay, we have a data show view, we get it to do, and in this one it also includes the comments. This is actually a special piece for this fetch related, so that works. And then you can do your comment stuff, which we do here. So we get for each comments, so you get like an array or list. I don't know how they say it in Haskell, list or array, and then you can render your comments. So that's basically what this part says. Then accessing the framework config. That's interesting. So you have framework configs defined in config. Is this. So environment, app hostname. That's a bit it for now in case of what we have. But you could apparently do stuff there. So it will be part of the request context and is thus available in controllers. A helpful function called fromConfig is available. This function takes a record from the framework config and evaluates it. For example, action do let environment is fromConfig the environment, which we have here. When is development environment, put string length running in dev mode. And then this is development with the environment is probably a helper function. The guide is already updated. I actually changed how framework config works. So this is not released yet either. This is like the guide is there, but it doesn't work yet on the app itself unless you update. I think if there's one thing I would change if I was digitally induced is to make it easier to say, okay, the guide is on this version and the application is on this version. There's only a beta. Yeah, I need to update, that's true. So everything is still in beta, or is there like a something already production value? Because this is one of the things I actually like about Symfony. So if you go to the Symfony documentation, just taking one. If you just go to documentation, and I'm just taking whatever. I just take something, right? So say I'm looking at the cache. I can easily see, okay, this is all of the cache data for 5.1, but if you're, for example, on 4.4, so you're on the long-term supported, the LTS, I always forget what the shortcut is. You just press it and then you get everything from the 4.4. And I really like this. I wish more applications, frameworks do this because it's really cool. Really helps you find stuff back, but that's just besides what's going on. Okay, so only a beta because they went open source in March. Well, I can say it already works pretty well for a beta. Yeah, indeed, that's nice. Nice to hear. So bi-weekly updates, and then as this grows up, it gets mature, then use version control. But I already think it's pretty far, you know? It's already pretty advanced. I can make, I mean, lean, this is pretty well, huh? It's pretty well made. It's real cool. So where were we? Right. So, but I don't have this version yet, so I cannot show it. But you could do from config and get environment stuff, but apparently it's... And then you can do stuff with it, which is nice. Because then you could call your app and you could put it in the title and stuff. That's nice. I do miss part of the, because it says you can do it both from the controller and in the views. Inside controllers and views, but there's only an example of the controller. Or I'm missing it. No, these are all controller. Yeah. So that would be nice if it also gives an example for the view. Lifecycle. Controller instant provides a before action function, which is called before the action function is called. This is for authentication, yes. And stuff like that. That's nice. before action. So this is in your routine. Calling the show post action will cause the following output to be logged to the server AB. You can also do before action equals ensure is user for the authentication. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. But I saw there was a part for that later on as well with the authentication part, so we might introduce authentication then. Okay, form config works in both. That's nice. So what I want to do is, because I saw you have authentication, we're gonna add it, and then when you're authenticated, I'm gonna use it to be the author of your comment automatically. That was one of the ideas I had. And then you could see, and also of the to-do, because I think to-do also has, no, okay, that makes sense. So it would automatically fill in your name, even though you technically don't need an author if you're just working on one thing, but it would be nice just to try and see how far we get with that. You can also access the current action inside the before action and action. You can access the current action using the special the action variable. It's useful for writing controller helpers because the variable is passed implicitly. Okay. Then IHP uses the Haskell WAI standard for dealing with HTTP requests and responses. You can get access to the Y request data structure by using request. Take a look at the way documentation, see what you could do with the way request. So you have action example action do let request body equals request get request body chunk, and then IHP provides shortcuts. Get request path to get the path. It's nice. Use get request path in query for accessing path with all parameters. The body and just general the request. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Headers. Use get header to access a request header. Okay, so you can get headers to do stuff. That's nice. Rendering responses, rendering views. You have several ways of sending a response. The most common way is to use the render function, which I think is used by default here. Yes, render. And then the show view. For example, render function automatically picks the right response format based on the accept header of the browser. It will try to send HTML when HTML is requested. It will also try to send the JSON when the JSON response is expected. A 406 not acceptable will be sent when the render function cannot fulfill. That makes sense. You can also render plain for a simple plain text response. You can also respond with HTML. Without views, you can just do respond HTML. And then just have the HSX in there. Okay. But you will need to import it. That makes sense. Static file. Just render file. Oh, that's nice. Indeed, if you want terms or stuff like that, that's nice. And then you define what type of file it is. Render not found. You can also do redirects. Okay, that's nice. And we'll automatically use it 302. Great. And then the base URL in the config hs is used. Apologies, it's getting a bit late. So you can also redirect to a path when it's on the same domain. Makes sense. Can also be used to specify current parameters for actions and details on. Okay. can also redirect to URL for some external stuff. Action execution. When calling a function to send a response, IHP will stop execution of the action. Internally, this is implemented by throwing and catching a response exception. Any code after a render sum view will not be called. This also applies to all redirect helpers. That makes sense. You're out of there. Whew, apologies. But you're out of there, so it makes sense that, yeah, this stuff wouldn't do anything anymore. When you have created a response manually, you can use respond and exit to send your response and stop action execution. Okay. And then there's some stuff to do. Request context. Actions have access to special variable request context. Provides access to the way request as well as infos. Is this part again the same as, because we already had way, right? I'm looking in the wrong part. Yeah. So you have access to current request and then you have request context, which apparently is somewhat the same. But yeah. All right. We're past 11 in the evening and I'm getting a bit tired. I've been up since 6 this morning. Well, 6:30, I believe. So we're not halfway. At least I don't know how long these are. So I don't know if we're halfway or not. Doesn't really matter. But this Thursday, I'm gonna continue on this. So it's gonna be learning Haskell part 3, and we'll start with the views. So basically what we did today was, see routing and stuff. That makes sense, but we didn't change anything. What we did do, however, was add helpers here for the markdown. So instead of having them in the controller or in the views respectively, we moved them to the helpers. So it would be easier to reuse between to-dos and comments, which is nice. So tomorrow, Thursday, Thursday will continue. I can see there's some forms, some validation, some view stuff, so we'll might be able to do something more afterwards. And then it goes further, session cookies, stuff like that. So yeah. So like I said, we're not gonna do the tech stuff anymore. Tech talk. I might make exceptions for stuff like live events that you can follow. I've seen that Apple events are very popular. I have an Apple, so maybe I'll stream that in the future as well. But for now, the schedule stays the same Monday and Thursday from 9 till 11 p.m. CET. And we'll do stuff. We'll continue with Haskell for now. So it will be the next few weeks will be Haskell. What comes after, we'll see. And yeah, hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something new, or at least were able to relax. At least you got some good tips for your neck and shoulders. And I'd like to thank you all for coming, for watching, for chatting, for lurking. And I wish you all a good night and see you all on Thursday. Bye bye.